Our hen house is a squawking house. Our hen house is their hen house. Our hen house, ooh, it's a funky fresh house. Our hen house is your hen house.
Hello and welcome to Our Hen House, a place to find our way to change the world for animals. Joining us today will be Leanne Ma-ly Hilgart, whose Williamsburg fashion house, Vaute Couture, is making compassion the height of style.
Then we'll be joined by two very special guests, Clover, who will be offering her own brand of wisdom on the state of animals in today's world, and Robbie, who is more the strong and silent type. They will be accompanied by Stephanie Matera and Barbara Tolan, who are both from the Mayor's Alliance for New York City's Animals, and I heard there might be an extra special guest joining them.
That's so exciting.
Stephanie and Barbara will be telling you how you might be lucky enough to take home one of these pooches, or how you can find your new best friend who might be waiting for you right now, right this very minute, at Brooklyn's Animal Care and Control, right on Linden Boulevard.
I am in. I am completely in. We'll also be giving you the skinny on what's been happening with animals this week. But first, we'll give you a glimpse into what's been going on in our world. So please, pull up some hay. Let's get squawking. Hello, Marianne.
Hi, Jasmine.
It has been so amazing to be backstage today. The green room, there's just dogs everywhere.
I know. I'm so excited about this segment.
They should actually have a camera on them instead of on us. It's just...
Well, I don't think that's a good idea, because if there was a camera on them, nobody would ever look at us again.
That's true.
Yeah.
I love the idea of bringing animals to our hen house.
I really love the idea of bringing animals. I love the idea that we're in a brand new place.
I know, the very rural part of Brooklyn.
We have a brand new set. We've moved to a new area, to, the rural part of Brooklyn. And why not have some animals here? Because the fact is that this might be a way for some animals to find some homes. I would love it if that happened.
I would too.
That would make me so happy.
That would be wonderful. And I also hear you talking about every 20 minutes about how something else you want to have on our show a lot is food.
Yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity to really highlight some of the amazing vegan food in Brooklyn. And there is amazing vegan food, not just from people who are out to open vegan restaurants, but everywhere, because of the huge range of ethnicities in Brooklyn, and because of that, the huge range of cuisines. And if some of those dishes a lot of those dishes are already vegan, I can't wait to eat them all. And if they're not, they can easily be made vegan. So yeah, I plan to eat my way through this television season.
There's just so many wonderful things to feature when you're talking about animals. Today we're going to be talking about fashion and animals. We have a lot of segments coming up where we're going to be featuring different artists who use their various art forms to speak up for animals.
Musicians.
Yeah, musicians.
People don't associate music necessarily with activism, but it's intimately associated, and we'll have some really remarkable musicians who are speaking up for animals through their music.
It's a great time to be involved, and we have had such a busy time because we have a TV show now. Yeah. And I have been so grateful for my Tuesday and Wednesday nights because, as you know, if you watched the opening, that I love to tap dance. And that's something that I kind of can't get enough of.
You tap danced as a kid, right?
I tap danced as a kid, then I stopped for about 20 years, and about a year ago, I decided to start it up again. And I have to say that I am known as the vegan girl in my tap school.
Good. That's a proud statement.
Yeah, the American Tap Dance Foundation. Oh, here I am tap dancing with my friend Laura, and Laura actually went vegan, which is super exciting. Which
excellent.
Is great.
Excellent. And you're both very good.
Well, I mean, Laura's very good. I'm still very much in the beginner phase, but the reason I wanted to bring this up, in addition to having an excuse to talk about my tap dancing,
which you would talk about pretty much 24/7.
Kind of, yeah.
If we let you.
Is that my shoes are vegan shoes.
Your shoes are the cutest thing I've ever seen. Look at those little ribbons.
And my old ones actually were like these silver shoes that sort of looked like they were from the Wizard of Oz.
They were adorable.
And as I mentioned, I'm kind of known in so many ways as that vegan girl.
Right.
And in a lot of times it's great. People want to share with me their lentil soup recipe, and they start to associate you with it. I had this one woman in class with me, and she meant really, really well. She has these very expensive fancy shoes. They're something like $400, and
$400?
I know. Mine are like $4.
$400?
but they're
You're not
like
buying
they're
$400 tap
they're not
shoes.
vegan. And she said
You're
to
definitely
me,
not buying them.
Right, but she said maybe you could think about getting more quality shoes, by which she meant leather, and for the sake of art, she said.
Oh, yeah.
It's so odd to me how people kind of think that you would make an exception for your values if it's for the sake of art.
Yeah, I think that comes from people thinking that being vegan is a sacrifice, which I think when you start, it feels like that, but that changes. I would never want to use leather. I find it horrifying.
Well, especially when there's alternatives available, as Leanne is going to talk about when she joins us in a little while.
Well, I think you should point out, having said this, that there's no reason you can't get high-quality vegan tap shoes. It's just that nobody's making them, or you haven't found the people who are making them. They could be just as good as the leather
But I
ones.
could just go over to Moo Shoes on the Lower East Side, which is a totally vegan shoe store. All of their shoes are fair trade, and get a pair and just get taps on them. I haven't because I'm lazy, is really the point.
Well, I must say that I would think that you would do anything for your tapping.
I'm going to do it. You convinced me. I'm going to do it. And I'll keep you posted. I know people are going to be dying to know how my tap dancing.
Yeah.
My grandmother used
Honey,
to
we're
think,
not going to talk about tap dancing on the show.
My grandmother used to think I was like Eleanor Powell.
Yeah, your grandmother loved you. Eleanor, I'm not sure everybody has heard of Eleanor Powell, which is the unbelievably great tap dancer in the 30s and 40s, and she was just the best.
She was.
You're very good, sweetie.
I know.
She's no Eleanor.
I'm not an Eleanor Powell. I know. But one thing I want to mention, just to switch gears a little bit, is that this week, on March 27th, our Hen House is going to be featured at Vegan Drinks, also on the Lower East Side, by Moo Shoes. You could go to Moo Shoes, too, while you're there. Vegan Drinks is a monthly social networking event for people interested in promoting veganism and advocating for animal rights. And its mission, which I love this, is to bring together a diverse group of people, from cupcake aficionados to animal lawyers. That's you.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm both a cupcake aficionado and an animal lawyer.
It's amazing. And to vegans, really, of all stripes in between. It's great.
Vegan Drink says that all they expect from attendees is an interest in animal rights.
Got it.
Veganism, interest in veganism, and the pursuit of after-work fun.
I like to have fun during work. But I just want to go back. You said that they want you to be interested in veganism. You don't necessarily have to be vegan. If you like to kick back and have a soy white Russian, which I personally enjoy, then come to Vegan Drinks.
Yeah, and it's not like everybody there is proselytizing. It's a really nice group of people.
It's a good time.
And they encourage you to show up and introduce yourself, pass around your business cards if you've got them. If you don't, that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. And to embarrass yourself at least once an hour, which makes for excitement. You can handle that part.
I've got that down. Right. And every month they benefit a different nonprofit. We are so honored and excited that March's Vegan Drinks is going to benefit our Hen House. So you can find more information at vegandrinks.org. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I would like to be there too. It sounds like a good time.
Yeah, I really
can't wait.
No, I can't wait either. But on a somewhat more serious note, law. That's my. That didn't work.
I didn't even get that.
As you already know,
I don't even want it.
There's a serious note. But as you already know, one of the multimedia arms of our Hen House is an online magazine that we published, and I was just so taken recently with the article that we published by Eliza Muirhead. Love this.
I was too. This is one of my favorite articles of recent days. And Eliza is from the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. And she's written a couple of articles for us. It's actually a trilogy. She has one more to do. And she's currently actually in Antarctica. That's where she's writing this from. And as many of you probably know, Sea Shepherd does a lot of work down in Antarctica. They've been featured in that show, Whale Wars, on Animal Planet, and they try to prevent the Japanese whaling fleet from getting to kill the whales. And they say they're upholding international law and that nobody else is upholding it. And in this particular article, does your smile mean the same as mine? Thoughts from the bottom of the world. I just love this article. I mean, for one thing, she does a really good job of painting the picture of what it's like to be on this tiny ship down there in these freezing
Can't
seas,
even imagine.
and how it really strips your life down to the essentials. But then she also uses an incident that happened to really talk about empathy, and she talks about a leopard seal who was sunning herself while perched on an ice floe as the ship passed by. That's the kind of thing that happens to me every day.
Yeah.
I go sailing past a leopard seal on an ice floe. And she talks about seeing the seal yawn.
Oh, I really thought this was interesting about what her ideas were about this yawn.
Yeah, I mean, she just took this moment to talk about how, you know, when we relate to anybody, when we relate to another human, we try to figure out what's going on with them. We try to empathize. We try to imagine what they're feeling.
Well, you could think about this a lot in terms of thinking about, like, you know, sick relatives or elderly relatives, and you're trying to make them comfortable, you know, to some degree. It's up to our imagination.
Even just in happiness, as her title says, does your smile mean the same as mine?
Yeah.
And, you know, we never really know, but we think we can guess. But we have to try to guess a little bit with animals, too, even though it's harder. I mean, it's easier with the dogs, who we'll be seeing later. But even with wild animals, what does it mean? Does it mean that the seal was bored, that she was cold, that she was tired? Or, as Eliza mentioned, I love this, that maybe she caught the yawn. You know, just as people can catch yawns from each other, animals can catch yawns from us and from each other as well. It's a very contagious kind of behavior. Yeah. And she just uses this event to talk about, I just want to read a couple of lines from her article because I just love it. Yeah. With animals, it's harder and often less accurate to make assumptions. How can we know whether similar behaviors indicate similar emotions? Though even with our big brains, it might be hard for us sometimes to decipher our own needs, desires, or emotions. What we can be sure of is that our emotional lives mean something to us. The state of being alive might mean something slightly different to each individual, but it does mean something. We can feel that it means something to ourselves and recognize that feeling in others, non-human animals included. I think she has said so much in those few lines.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And Eliza also mentioned to us that last year they saved the lives of 932 whales. Think about that. That's 932 individuals with different points of view. And over the course of their campaigns, they've protected over 3,000 more. So amazing. And I just want to take a step back. We're about to show you a video that Eliza sent, but Eliza, when I emailed her to say, can we show this video on our TV show, she said, yes, get it out there. She said, Jasmine, I know you've been very busy. I just want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. And I was like, indeed I am, person who's writing to me from the Ross Sea, where you're on a ship that is constantly being the target of people who want to see it go down. I will take care of myself, Eliza.
Yeah, it's almost, your life is almost as dangerous and difficult
very
as
similar.
that. Almost. It's
very
close,
similar.
Yeah.
But she sent along this video.
Your coffee wasn't that hot this morning?
It was. Yeah, it was lukewarm.
Really awful.
With this video, we're actually going to show it in full. Eliza made it. It's about 4 minutes long, and it shows how frightening and hostile and really dire the work of the Sea Shepherd is when they set out to protect the whales down in Antarctica. And Eliza made this video for the Sea Shepherd. It is called Night Attack on the Bob Barker. And according to Eliza's description, it records a 6-hour night attack by the Japanese fleet on the Sea Shepherd's ship, the Bob Barker. And this all just happened a few weeks ago on February 23rd. Yeah. So we're going to show that video now.
On Sunday morning, on the 23rd of February, Sea Shepherd, for the third time this season, located the Nishin Maru at the bottom of the Ross Sea. The Nishin Maru was found in whaling formation with the 3 Yushin Marus, its harpoon ships, and the security vessel, the Shonan Maru. The Bob Barker was sailing peacefully 6 miles off the stern of the Nishin Maru, guarding its slipway and preventing their illegal whale poaching operations. Once again, the Japanese whaling fleet waited for the cover and protection of darkness and rough weather and launched another strategized attack on the Bob Barker in order to allow the Nishin Maru to break free of the Sea Shepherd ships and continue their illegal killing of whales within an internationally recognized sanctuary. Just like last time, this attack was unprovoked, but this time they made their intentions clear.
Yushin Maru, Bob Barker, 1-6.
This is Yushin Maru number 3. Yushin Maru number 3. Warning, keep quiet, avoid collision. Immediately on the course and keep a safety distance. As a security measure, I will start turning a safety distance warning please. After.
Yushin Maru number 3, Bob Barker. Let me be very, very clear. What you are doing is illegal. We are doing nothing wrong. We are doing nothing wrong. You are acting unlawfully, and your actions are being reported to the governments of Australia and the government of New Zealand. I have 9 Australian citizens on board and you are risking their lives. Make it very clear what you are doing is illegal.
Under the cover of darkness, the Yushin Maru and Yushin Maru number 3 crossed the bow of the Bob Barker a total of 33 times over the course of 6 hours. They dragged steel cables up to 250 meters long across the bow of the Bob Barker, attempting to disable their propeller and rudder. During this, the whaling fleet shone spotlights into the bridge of the Bob Barker, making safe navigation difficult. Despite these difficult conditions, the Bob Barker launched its small boat in an attempt to cut the steel cables and continue on their course. The small boat crews were out in pitch black conditions, in minus 10 degrees Celsius, for over 4 hours, and had projectiles and shards of ice thrown at them from the bow of the Yushin Maru. After 6 exhausting hours, the Nishin Maru once again slipped out of sight and off of the Bob Barker's radar. This attack showed an unprecedented escalation of desperation and aggression from a dying industry with no regard for the future of our oceans. When the captain of the Nishin Maru was asked whether or not he believed anything would stop Sea Shepherd's campaigns in the Antarctic, he simply answered no, because they never retreat. Despite these attacks, we will find them a 4th time, and we will do all we can to stop them. Because when it comes to upholding international conservation law and defending whales' lives, we never retreat. We are relentless.
You know, as we mentioned, Sea Shepherd has gotten a lot of attention because of the show Whale Wars on Animal Planet, and they've managed to prevent a lot of deaths just by being out there. But the fact is that the whaling continues, and it's so clear, especially after watching that video, that every time these folks go out there, they are literally risking their lives. You know, it's just, it seems so absurd. It's got to stop. It's sheer insanity.
Eliza is truly one of my heroes.
Yeah.
She's a remarkable person. All of them are remarkable, but it's scary, and you're right. It just hasn't stopped. Mm-hmm. It's hard to stop any kind of animal abuse.
Well, without question. And aside from saving whales, I'm curious, Marianne, if there's been any other progress on other fronts for animals this week. I understand that there's some big news about pigs.
Well, there has been some news about pigs. Some would call it big, some would call it not so big.
Some would call it pig.
In fact, pigs have actually been a really huge focus of the animal protection advocates for quite a while now. Pigs are where it's at. And it has to do with how they're raised on factory farms. Pigs are actually really intelligent animals, as many people know.
They're wonderful.
They love to root and make nests for themselves. It's often said that they're smarter than dogs.
It's funny you should say that, because our dog Rose also loves to make nests. Every time we come home, it's like there's different cushions everywhere throughout the apartment. I think that we're showing some footage right now. This is from Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary, where farmed animals who would otherwise be sent to slaughter or killed are given a second chance at life. And you could just see there's so much going on there. And I know that I've heard that, as you mentioned, they can also be compared to the intelligence level of like 3-year-olds.
Yeah, I never know what to make of when people say things like that, but I think it's kind of an approximation that they have that intelligence. In fact, 3-year-olds, wouldn't be able to have babies and raise families and take care of themselves, which pigs can, but then 3-year-old humans can do a lot of things that pigs can't. So it's just a rough approximation, but people try to at least translate some way of thinking about animals to show how smart they are. And knowing how smart they are, it's especially tragic how brutally and horribly they're treated in animal agribusiness, and that's why they have been really the focus of animal rights advocates for a long time. And one of the reasons is because of the gestation crate.
Yeah.
And these animals are kept in these tiny little spaces, and this is not for these animals are alive. This is not for a day or a week. This is how they spend their short lives. I mean, breeding pigs live for maybe 4 years, and they live in these gestation crates while they're pregnant, after they've been artificially inseminated and throughout their pregnancy, and then they're taken out of that, but they're just moved to another crate, which is really not much bigger. It just allows them to lie on their side so they can nurse their piglets for the few short weeks that they are able to do that. And these animals just they literally do go crazy in these.
Of course they do.
In these conditions.
I go crazy for like a 3-hour flight to Kansas City in my seatbelt in the airplane, and I get to get out after 3 hours.
Yeah, that's actually something that people do. Trying to bring up that situation that people go through that you can compare this horror to, and you think of how uncomfortable you are in an airplane seat, which is cushioned, and you know you're getting out of in a few hours. But instead, animals who are very, very much like dogs, just kept in these horrible, horrible conditions. There has been a move against these gestation crates by the animal protection movement, as I said, and there have been a number of elements of progress. First of all, the European Union banned them a while back. They can't use these gestation crates. And I want to make sure that just because they're not using the gestation crates doesn't mean the pigs are having a walk in the park. They're not living like those pigs at Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary. They're still in very crowded conditions, but they're in groups where they can move around a little bit. And
it's definitely not good enough. I mean, in our ideal world, there wouldn't be any kind of animal exploitation. But yeah, I guess it's important to recognize the fact that reforms such as these are getting these issues onto mainstream media. People are starting to think about them.
And they're getting them onto mainstream media, and the industry has gone so far down the road of horrible that even these tiny reforms can make a big difference for pigs. Just getting them out of a crate that they can't move ever is a big reform, even though, as you said, it doesn't mean much to where they're going. It's still horrible. But there has been progress. There's been progress in this country as well. A number of states have banned gestation crates. I think it's only Florida in which the ban has actually gone into effect, because usually when they pass these bans, they put a really long lead time in so that the industry can do whatever they not spend money for a while and not have to retrofit everything. Again, the animals get the short shrift, but it is progress. But what's really interesting, in most of the states in the United States where these crates have been banned, it's been in states where they have ballot initiatives, and the legislatures just don't pass these laws and don't pay attention to what's happening to the animals until they're forced to by people voting on it. So it's been really hard. The thing that happened this past week is that Canada, which has really tough conditions for animals in agribusiness, just like the United States does, actually made a move towards banning the gestation crate in new facilities or in facilities that are being retrofitted. They're not going to be able to use them. So that's, everything you say in this area, it's a huge step forward and it's a tiny step forward. That's the only way to talk about it.
I worked actually on a campaign in California in 2008, Prop 2, and I remember traveling around California in this truck that had a movie screen on it that showed these confinement systems. And whenever we would stop at a gas station, I would actually leaflet people with Go Vegan brochures with recipes and things. And I got so many emails from people who, as a result of thinking about it for the first time, just stopped consuming animals altogether. Speaking of which, coconut bacon is the latest kind of vegan bacon to come to the market, and I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, do we have any?
No, but we're going to.
Why not?
There's just an alternative to every single kind of cruelty out there, especially, pigs, pig exploitation and bacon and things like that. And clearly there are so many reasons to leave animals, including pigs, off our plates. But we might also want to leave them off our backs.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings us to our first guest for today, Leanne Ma-ly Hilgart. Mm-hmm. She is the brilliant mastermind behind the Williamsburg fashion house Vaute Couture, which is creating apparel and fabrics that are, quote, better than wearing animals ever could be. Absolutely. Yeah. She's a former Ford model, and Leanne's,
she's pretty.
You can kind of tell.
She's good looking. Good looking lady.
She's, all right, honey, calm down.
Pretty good looking. Sorry.
Leanne started Vaute with the mission to create the perfect winter dress coat, inspired by a lifetime of bitterly cold Chicago winters.
After this New York winter, I'm wondering. I think that we all need a Vaute Couture coat. And in January of 2013, Vaute broke history as the first all-vegan label to show at the New York Fashion Week, where it was covered by CNN, and it was named by Business Insider as one of the most innovative businesses in New York City. Her clothes are not only cruelty-free, but they are gorgeous.
They really are gorgeous.
They are. And before we bring Leanne on, let's take a look.
Vaute stands for vote. When you buy something, you're voting for everything behind it. Ethical fashion or ethical anything always sounds like such a secondary or alternative lifestyle, and to me it's like everyone's kind, everyone has a big heart. I just always hated it if somebody was like being mistreated or like bullied or something like that. Just really bothered me. And animals, I always felt like they really didn't have anyone to stick up for them. I'm really lucky that my parents let me be unpopular. I made my own puffy paint statement t-shirts and jewelry from like my Easy Bake Oven, and I went from being the coolest girl in school to being the least understood girl in school. Later, when I grew up and I realized that I wanted to do something for the animals, I had to figure out what that was. And so when I first started the label and I needed to do custom fabrics and if you do custom fabric, you need to do hundreds of something. So I'm not starting out with a few design coats and saying, let's sell them on Etsy, see how it does. No, in the bottom of the recession, I had to sell hundreds of coats of a brand new fabric. And people told me they thought I was crazy. I had to buy that fabric ahead of time. You know, fashion and business, I feel like they think they're exempt from ethics. And to me, that's the most important time to consider how something is made and where it goes. We can reach the mainstream and let people know that they can easily wear kind fashion. I feel responsible to give it everything. And if I don't, I feel like I could potentially be letting down the movement and my mission.
So inspiring. Welcome to our Hen House, Leanne.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
I remember that event. We were there.
Absolutely, it was spectacular.
Aw,
I
thank
could not
you.
believe it.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Fashion Week is not really, something I go to a lot.
Well, I think this is like our own personal Fashion
So
Week.
amazing.
Yeah, Leanne, you're doing such amazing work. And before you tell us about Vaute Couture, I understand that you actually started doing this as a kid. You kind of started your career as a child. Tell us about that.
Let's see. So when I was 8, I made art with my friends, and we sold it door to door to raise money for the local animal shelter. I'm pretty sure that we actually spent more money making the arts and crafts, but luckily my parents let me give all of the donations that we got to the local shelter, which I later volunteered for. But yeah, I have just always kind of felt like we were doing something to animals that no one was talking about. So when I was 10, I ended up picking my social studies fair project to be on factory farming, vivisection in the fur industry. Wow. I just wanted to know, it's one of those things where you're like, how does this happen? How do we get food on our plate? How does the girl down the street end up with a rabbit fur coat? Obviously, rabbits are dead. I didn't know anything about anal electrocution or fur farms, but I knew that something just wasn't right.
I had fur as a little kid,
Sure.
as a first grader. I remember I had this little muff.
Yeah, I had a fur muff.
Yeah,
maybe it's the same muff.
Maybe it
I've been
was.
thinking about making faux fur muffs. I just think, brightly colored ones. I like them when they look really fake.
Yeah.
But I just really like a 40s, 30s, 20s vibe. Maybe you guys would have to
Absolutely.
rock that for sure.
We'll wear it for every episode.
Awesome, like this. You should just stand here like this.
That's
totally.
normal
They'll be
and
like,
natural.
It'll bring back our
Absolutely.
childhood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or you can hold your hands together inside one.
Aww.
It will be our Hen House muff.
And it's also like gay rightsy in that way.
Totally. Yeah, maybe.
I'm gonna actually. I'm thinking of a joke right now, but I'm not gonna make it. I'm just
Oh,
gonna.
thank God.
I'm just gonna keep it in
God.
my head. But
I can assure you that anything that Jasmine has edited is well worth editing.
well, she's talking about a muff.
Sorry,
anyway.
I realized I said
Yeah,
that.
no, we're gonna
Let's move on.
So why did you decide to start Vaute Couture?
That's a good question. I guess the shortest answer is that originally I wanted to be a school principal. I really wanted
to be in charge.
Yeah,
not a teacher for you.
Well, for me, I really wanted to encourage people to become more leaders and innovators in their community, and I feel like the school systems really focus on just following rules, and people who are more innovative tend to be treated like they're being bad, which I thought was really interesting because then you end up kind of fulfilling that.
So true.
So when I ended up in the school system teaching a little bit, I felt it just didn't feel right. So I had to think like, what is it that's supernatural for me? What is it that feels like this is what I'm meant to do? And for me, it was running campaigns for animal rights in college, and I loved it so much. And the biggest part for me was when I would get people to think about where their heart's already open. Like if I talked to people on campus and said, do you just miss your dog? Do you just miss your cat? And we said, okay, so your heart's open there. So why don't you come with me to the Chicago Animal Care and Control? In the snow, I'll drive a 12-seater van. I'll have everybody help me turn, change lanes because I'm a really bad driver, let alone in snow, in the worst traffic. We'd go and hang out with the homeless dogs and cats. So you take it from where their heart's already open, take it to other animals like that animal, and then from there I'd sit down with them after and talk about how 3 to 4 million healthy dogs and cats are put to sleep every year just because people aren't adopting and they're also not spaying and neutering. So then I took it from one animal they have a connection with to multiple animals, to the action they can take to become a proactive part of their life of their community. And then I would ask them, hey, we're bringing Howard Lyman on campus. Why don't you guys come help us, with a meet out and with listening to this guy who used to be an ex-cattle rancher and why
Howard
he's
Lyman
now
he
vegan.
has an amazing story.
He has an amazing story. And for me, I realized that people might not necessarily want to go from, being, for me to just be like, why don't you come see this cattle rancher, and talk about veganism. But if we start first with where is it that their heart's already open and say, how do we connect that to multiple animals that are like that animal? And then how do we connect that to feeling like a proactive part of your life to then other animals and continue to widen that circle of compassion, but also become a proactive person in your own life and in your community. So for me, that was my natural voice in activism. And I ended up realizing it was essentially marketing if I thought about it in a real world terms. So I got a marketing internship at this place called Sitter City. It's like a Match.com for parents and babysitters. And I had so much fun doing grassroots campaigns all over the country. And from that, I realized that if I was working instead with grassroots groups that were doing something for animals, my life would be all connected and so much fuller. And the CEO was really young, and she was making an impact on so many moms' lives without even really trying to. And I thought, this is where my activism can be tenfold, where every time I create a process with a business, it will be exponential.
So you already had this business know-how, and clearly you went into modeling. I'm having a hard time connecting.
So modeling happened kind of on accident. This is one of the things that I really believe is that all the things that accidentally happen in your life, you do them because you're pulled towards them or because they come into your life and they just feel right as part of your adventure.
Totally agree.
But then those things, you add them up in a way that only you can. And then you can serve the world with who you are using these tools that only you have. And so I'm 5'5", I'm not even tall, but I was taking an acting class for fun. It was on camera, and this guy in my class was like, hey, has Ford models ever seen you? And I was like, why would they see me? It's a 5'8" height requirement. He's like, you look taller. I didn't realize, but why didn't you just go in anyway? I went in, they signed me the next day.
Wow.
So from that, I just ended up being able to model, through Ford in Chicago, where I'm from, and then also in Asia, and I got to live in my mom's country. And
was that your first introduction to fashion?
Yes.
You used to make clothing
yeah,
as a child.
Okay, sure, but it wasn't. All right, so my story with fashion, is not what you would think for a fashion designer. Because when I was a kid, I would make my own puffy paint t-shirts that were statement tees about animal rights. I made a shirt
about animal rights, because I had the puffy paint tees. It was the 80s.
Yeah.
But they had like hearts and rainbows.
Sure.
That was the extent of my social consciousness.
Pretty sure mine had hearts
Maybe
and
the rainbows
too.
were gay rights, though.
Right. Perhaps. So you were doing your own
Maybe.
social justice
That's
statement
right.
t-shirts. But one of the t-shirts I made was the title from that social studies fair project. So it was "Being cruel isn't cool." Very 10-year-old slogan, but I sold it to a t-shirt company. Thanks. I sold it to a t-shirt company who ended up selling it nationally. And a friend of mine, L'Augusta, who owns L'Augusta's Luscious vegan chocolates upstate, the most amazing ones. If you guys have them,
Augusta's Luscious,
They're
I have.
they're
amazing.
incredible, right?
They're all slavery-free and fair trade and vegan and
yeah,
good.
handmade
and
and beautiful.
she has a chocolate vagina.
She does those.
I think that
vulvas,
That's the
right?
first time I've said vagina on our TV show.
We actually would
Not
make
the
some of
last.
those for the vagina monologues when I was in college. We'd always make our own chocolate vaginas. For
Okay, so
Apparently it's a whole thing
Moving
that I
beyond-
didn't even know about. Chocolate vaginas.
moving beyond chocolate vagina.
Right.
Which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. so you used to make clothes as a kid. Now
Yeah.
you have this background as a business person,
Sure.
and you're modeling.
And I was modeling.
How did you connect the dots to make these clothes and these
Yeah.
coats?
So basically, when I started doing the marketing, and then I realized the CEO was really young, and I thought, this is what I've got to do. I have to figure out where the parts of my life add up to making it possible for me to be the biggest tool I can. For the
Yet another
I always
show.
wanted to be a
What's
tool,
going on
clearly. So I worked really hard on being the biggest tool that I could be.
That could be on,
edit that
that could
into
be
a
on your
soundbite.
next message sheet in puppy paint.
Absolutely. And so I went back to school to get my MBA. I knew I needed to fill out like accounting and finance understanding because I didn't really have a background in that. And then I was modeling in Hong Kong the summer after, and just running through every concept I had never really given a full chance to. And outerwear, since I'm from Chicago, and it's like the worstest, coldest winters ever. I mean,
Even
the
in
cold
compared-
winter we had here, listen, yesterday my
Yeah.
mom was sending me a text message of the 6 feet of snow that they, or 6 feet, sorry, 6
All
inches
right.
of snow they got
All
yesterday.
right,
It was
Miss-
March,
all
like, whatever.
right. Windy
so-
city.
I know, but I can up you on that for
All
sure.
right.
It was definitely much, much colder in
win.
Chicago.
It's a
So-
competition I want to lose.
yeah, I think when you lose, you win.
You know
that
who actually
competition.
wins? Eliza from the Sea Shepherd.
Oh, yes.
It might be colder in Antarctica.
That's probably
But then again, she
true.
should totally have a Vaute Couture coat to keep her warm.
Yes, she should, absolutely. And we're doing the down alternative too. Those would be really good.
The down
for
alternative.
Made of 100% recycled plastic bottles. Those would be good ones. I have a full length with like a hood, and it's like a helmet thing almost, and I wore it
No,
during
I
the
want to know
vortex.
about your materials, but
Yeah.
first you have to get me up to how Vaute
Okay,
started.
sorry. Yeah, okay, let me finish.
Yeah.
I'll wrap that up real quick. So basically, I was going through different concepts, and I thought, originally when I looked at coats, I was like, oh, please, like, there's not a big enough market for that. If I told anyone I was making vegan coats, they look at me like I'm crazy. But I realized something really important. I realized that if I focused on using taking animal fibers out of the equation, because fashion is plant fiber, synthetic, and animal. If you take a whole third of that out of the equation, now I'm looking at a problem from an inventor standpoint. My parents are both science people, so if I look at it from that standpoint, not from a design standpoint, but saying problem-solving wise, I now have to look at it completely differently. And whenever things are good enough, people don't try to reinvent them. And the wool coat with a silk liner was always good enough. But I had to say, I can't use wool. I don't want to be wearing animals at all. So instead, I'm going to look at this from a completely different standpoint. And if I can do that and create something that's actually better than wearing animals, we can say, you don't have to wear animals.
Well,
There's
let's
no
just
need
pause for
it.
a second and talk about wool for just a second, because it is something that I think a lot of people have a wool coat to keep them warm.
Sure.
And that's the first thing that I think Vaute Couture really did reinvent on such a massive level. But
I
wool
think that people
production-
have to, you really have to sell the idea that wool should be replaced, because most people don't realize how much cruelty there is in wool production.
Absolutely. Most people don't know that at all. I mean, but that being said as well, it's so important. That's why it's so important to create something that's better, so that they can see that it's the future of fashion and the future of lifestyle to be eating and dressing vegan, not just an alternative that you have to choose.
Yeah.
That if we say there's this better option out there that's actually higher tech and actually warmer for you, then there's no reason why. I have lots of women in the coldest cities who they're like, I love fur, but they love my coats because they're really warm.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It happens with food too. We can't just tell
Absolutely.
people that you should feel guilty and you should eat bad food
Sure.
or wear ugly clothes
Right,
for
right.
the rest of your life.
Exactly.
We have to make that case. But I do also think it's important that
It
we
is.
let people know how
Absolutely.
much sheep suffer.
We
in
have
the wool
some video of
industry.
this, I think. I just,
Most people have no idea.
they have no idea what
Yeah.
goes on with these animals, and they think that they just sort of naturally shed this.
In fact, these merino wool, they grow way too much wool. They're bred so they grow so much wool that they get these infections with these flies. And then to prevent that, they end up cutting
They
their
slice
skin.
their skin so that they scar them. So they have scar tissue so they won't have the bugs like seeding and like living in their skin. And they do that without an anesthetic, obviously. And when they're shearing, they do it to be as efficient and effective as possible, always cutting off slabs of skin. But they're factory farmed and they're slaughtered after. To me, if there's an animal where after you know, if the way that they're being part of production is to produce a fiber or a material like eggs or like milk or like wool.
Right.
It's like those are things that they're not only slaughtered at the end, they're continually going through a really incredibly cruel process. It's not meant to be cruel. This is the thing that also I find really important to say is that like it's not like we're saying, oh, there's some really bad guys and like they are just trying to be cruel. No. It's Industrial Revolution meant we tried to make everything into machinery, everything into cogs, pieces of a machine, and that means increasing profits and decreasing costs. And so animals don't belong in that machine.
And
They
now
just
what I
don't.
think is so fantastic is that there are alternatives to everything. We were just talking about pigs and we were talking about coconut bacon. Have you tried it?
I haven't yet.
I'm just dying to.
I can
Of course,
imagine.
we've had soy bacon and
Yeah.
whatnot, but also with clothes, there
Yeah.
are alternatives.
Yeah.
What do you use instead of using wool?
So I ended up realizing after 8 months of fabric research, I just quit everything, quit the contract, quit my MBA, went home and was like, I need to figure this out. So I ended up realizing that if I worked with high-tech mills that like Patagonia and North Face work with, but work at their highest tech sustainability materials that are made of recycled fibers and recyclable fibers, we could then be working with things that, you know, they send into space and that they send to like the Arctic explorers, but do it in a way that's never been constructed before, the finishes that have never been used before. So you get the look and feel of a winter dress coat, but the warmth and protection of a Patagonia or sports coat. And that's there in what our offering is to people who, whether they care or not about animals, they have this option. And then we can use that, again, like I said, where you find where someone's heart is already open, then we can welcome them into like learning more about different things and the awareness of their lifestyle.
It's
I
just
love
amazing.
that, Pat. And you know, I always tell my students when we start talking about wool production that nobody climbs to the top of Mount Everest wearing wool or fur.
They don't.
Or
They're
any animal
Vermont.
product. They wear
Absolutely
these
not.
great
Yeah.
modern fabrics.
They might have their fashionably faux fur muff, for sure. But
those ones fall off the mountain
fall
and are
off
never
and
heard
die.
from
yeah,
again.
sure.
It's true.
Right, they don't. The Arctic explorers, what they wear is high-tech materials. And we use the ones that are also made of recycled fibers. So like I said, our warmest down alternative full-length coat is made from encased in a shell and a liner that's 100% plastic bottles recycled. And they're recycled in Italy right by the recycling plant where it's a mechanical process. There's no chemicals even used for the recycling
So it's all very
itself.
eco-friendly too.
Yeah, I try to be as eco-friendly as we can be. And also
great.
it's local production so that also the workers are treated fairly too.
Okay, so we're talking about all of these clothes and all of these alternatives, but what I think is particularly unique about your line, Vaute, is that it's really, really attractive. I mean, as we mentioned, you had this fashion show last year at New York Fashion Week, the first all-vegan label to have its own show. And can you actually show us what you're wearing?
I just brought a couple things that we just shot for spring. So I love vintage.
I'm so excited about the idea of spring.
Yeah, I know. Today actually feels a little bit like spring.
I love
so
that
this
dress.
is just like a little, it's actually inspired from a vintage 40s piece that I got
Yeah,
in Paris.
I can see that, yeah.
And it's 100% organic cotton. This spring and summer is so easy to do vegan because it's just organic cottons,
Right.
you know, and then our satins made of recycled plastic bottles. We're gonna be doing gowns next spring. And then I also we do a lot of wax canvas because it's a great leather alternative. It doesn't look like a leather alternative in bright yellow, but I kind of love yellow so much.
Yeah,
So
I
we're
love
doing
that
this like trench.
It's adorable.
And it's waterproof. So what's great about wax
Love
canvas,
it.
it's made by a family upstate. This one's a little bit not my size, but this is the sample. And then it just keeps you waterproof, windproof. It's actually really warm. Yeah, so we have these, and then we do like bomber jackets and stuff in like the brown and black waxed. And it's a fabric that's originally meant for farmers, outdoorsmen, hunters. You can't even put it in the wash. You have to like just hose it down because it's super sturdy and super rugged.
You know, you're right. I've seen that fabric in the brown, and it looks so much like leather. Yeah, only kind of more beautiful. The texture is just so interesting.
Thanks. Yeah.
So, do you think that there is a shift in consciousness in the fashion industry to not be so exploitative of animal skin and animal products?
I mean, I think that's a really hard question to answer because in one regard, the fur industry spends so much money getting new designers and magazines to promote them that it looks like it's really popular. And yet I think there have been numbers that came out, I don't know if I should say this or not because I can't remember, that came out that said that it was actually a little bit on the decline, actually wearing fur, which is great. But you know, Condé Nast came to my show, and the director of the marketing team there said to me, like, I love fur. Tell me why this is relevant to me. And I said, because I'm focusing on the future of fashion, where we don't need to wear animals ever again because we're creating something better. And she ended up thinking I was a great fit for the Game Changer campaign for Mazda 6 and Condé Nast.
Oh, I saw that video.
So for them to realize and put vegan all over it, they were like, they said that I was happy to say vegan is the future of fashion. And they were very happy to put that out there in Lucky Magazine, Glamour Magazine, all the Mazda campaigns and all of that too. So
and it totally is. I mean, these are archaic fabrics. To use fur is absolutely.
You had a situation where you were guest teaching an animal law class for somebody else, and these were like, you know, young men and women in the class, mainly in their early 20s, as law students tend to be. Frequently, not always, and they had no idea that anything was wrong with fur.
Yeah, they knew all about factory farming, which I was amazed at because most people are not aware of what's happening to animals who are raised for food, and they had no idea about fur, which just is, you know, the animal rights movement has been working on fur for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But every generation has to be educated all over again. That's why it's so important. The industry will not change without people changing. It's a social movement.
Yeah, and I feel like what happens is people just fill in the blanks. I think that a lot of times people just assume things are done properly if it's a norm. And so I remember meeting someone who he had it was an accidentally vegan but eco-conscious shoe line. And I asked him, you know, how often they did events at the store. And he was like, oh, well, actually, I do a lot of marketing actually for Neiman Marcus's fur department. And I was like, is that a joke? And it turned out it wasn't a joke. And he ended up telling me that he thought that they had just naturally died and there was like an overpopulation.
I've heard other people say
and
that.
I was like, so what I ended up breaking it down for him was I said, listen, okay, so if you just think about it, because this is the thing, people don't mean to. No. They just fill in the blanks.
No, a lot of
wrong,
people are very well-intentioned, and we just have to educate
and they're lied
them.
to.
And you're educating them so perfectly through Vaute, and you actually have a store in Williamsburg, so people can come visit you.
It's
a wonderful store.
Thank you.
And it's in a great neighborhood where there's lots of great stuff to eat.
Thanks. So much good food. Oh my gosh, down the street you can get like cashew cheese, mac and cheese with greens, so good at Bliss.
Marianne really wants to eat. We were discussing that before.
Oh, you guys hungry right now?
Well, Leanne, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for all that you do. I hope that you'll come back and just keep us in the loop about what's going on with fashion. Because
do you think I'm not in the loop about what's going on with fashion?
I'm going to ignore that once again.
You too.
Leanne, thank you so much for joining us today in our Hen House
and
so much for all you're doing.
Appreciate it. Thanks for all you guys are doing. Congrats on the new show.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. And you can learn more about Vaute Couture on their website, vautecouture.com, which I am sure is going to get a huge spike in traffic right now.
And we're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. All that
Great, excellent.
So Leanne, we're completely thrilled that you were able to join us. Thanks. And I now want to go out and revamp my wardrobe and become stylish at long last.
Where I will
this afternoon. That was really inspiring. But I'm probably even more excited about our next guests. I have to admit it. I'm
okay with it. No, I spent time with them.
We shouldn't be comparing, but I'm sorry, I have to. I just have to say though, just a warning: if you stay tuned to meet our next guests, which I hope you do, you might end up wanting to take one of them home with you. Not that you don't want to take Leanne home with you. I'm just saying. But before they join us, let's take a look at some of the work that's being done by the Mayor's Alliance for New York City's Animals. after watching that video, I am feeling the very strong need to cuddle with a puppy, and it's excellent.
I've got a puppy.
I have one right beside me, and I'm so excited that we're being joined by Stephanie Matera and Barbara Cholin and Joe Galka from the Mayor's Alliance for New York City's Animals, but I am especially glad that we are being joined by Clover.
She's like the sweetest thing. Oh my God, she's so little.
Yeah.
Just a baby.
Yeah, I know that these darling dogs are from the Mayor's Alliance, and I know that they're originally from the Brooklyn Animal Care and Control. But Stephanie, I don't actually know that much more about them. Can you tell us where these puppies are from?
Sure. So Clover is a mixed breed. She's 2 months old. As you can see, she's got a great disposition. She's very fun, high energy for someone who's looking for a playful dog. And then down here, we have 2 gorgeous dogs too. Ronnie is about a year old. He's a male. He's been neutered. They're all spayed and neutered.
That's great.
Yes. And then we have Winnie, who is just so photogenic and so loving. And she's about 2 years old.
Well, they are all so completely fantastic. And so can you talk a little bit about the importance of adoption and people who might be watching this and perhaps they don't know the difference between buying a dog and adopting a dog?
So I always advocate for a rescue and adoption because it really is the socially responsible way. And she's advocating for it as well. Yeah. It's really the socially responsible way to get an animal. When you buy from a pet store, they usually come from puppy mills.
Yeah.
And they really live in deplorable conditions. They're usually inbred, they come with health issues. So by adopting, you're really doing a good thing. You're saving a life and you're also showing that you're a socially responsible person.
It's so incredible. One thing that I always find interesting is that people who might want to buy a dog don't necessarily realize that when you're buying a dog, essentially a dog who is at a shelter is not going to make it because there's only so many slots, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I would love to know a little bit about Winnie's personality. And Barbara, do you mind telling us a little bit about Winnie?
Sure. Winnie is, as you can see, a very well-behaved girl. She's pretty mellow. She enjoys with her foster family going for long walks in the Brooklyn area. And also going to the dog park. So she's definitely a couch potato at home and out and about. She, enjoys being out there.
Well, what is it about pit bulls? Marianne and I have a rescued pit bull, and we were talking on the last episode about how maligned these darling dogs are. What is that about?
I think that they just sort of they're a high energy breed for the most part. I think that they're really intelligent and they need owners that are going to put the time into them. Definitely when we first got Winnie from, the Brooklyn Animal Control, she, was pretty young and we needed to work with her, and thankfully the foster family's been doing a good job. But they're dogs that definitely people need to, keep up with on basic matters and things like that. And, definitely get them out there and well socialized from the start.
Yeah, totally. It's a really good point. Do you love that? Are you gonna? Do I need to check your bag before we leave to see if?
Oh, she would fit in so nicely.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she'll fit in somewhere else too. She's just really a baby.
Yeah.
She's really only 2 months. She must have been found when she was very tiny.
They were rescued as puppies along with the mother. And all of the puppies have found homes.
But she's the best one.
And
how could the best one be the last?
We saved the best for last. Yeah.
So Joe, can you tell us a little bit about Robbie?
Well, Robbie's a very affectionate dog, as you can see. We're not sure though, breed-wise, what he is. We should have a little game here to figure out what he might be. We're not sure, but he's a wonderful dog. He also came from the Brooklyn shelter, I think. And how long do we have now?
About a month or so.
A month or so,
So
yeah.
you've had him for a month.
Did I hear that he might have had some health problems?
Party.
And they're all better now?
Yeah.
We need to leave this alone. Yeah.
Yeah, some sort of problem.
Just that too.
What was I?
We treated him for intestinal.
Oh, hang on.
We treated him for intestinal parasites, which is common for dogs, especially when they're strays and they haven't seen vets before. So he's all good, cleared now, so he's gaining some weight. He'll probably put on another 5 pounds, I would say, but he's full grown, so he won't be getting any bigger. So definitely a good New York City dog.
He's a perfect size. He's perfect in every way.
Leanne, you have a dog, don't you have a dog?
Yeah.
And who's your dog?
Her name is Audrey, and she's a little mini pin Chihuahua mix, and she is my favorite.
Yeah.
I have so much fun with her every day, and I bring her to the store. And
Where did you
have a
get
great
her
time.
from?
She's from Harlem, ACC. And then a friend of mine had rescued her but had terrible allergies and had posted about her on Facebook, and I was like, she's the one
You know,
for me.
people don't understand that they can. ACC is, of course, the Animal Care and Control. It's the public shelter where
Right.
anybody can bring in their animals, and people tend to think that the animals they find there are the leftovers or not as good, but they're the best, right?
Yeah, they're the best. And they know they've been rescued, so they are so grateful. And they know then what it was like to be without a home, be without a family. So once they have one, they'll always be with you, you know?
Yeah.
So for people who can't get to the shelter, do you ever do mobile adoptions?
We do. We actually do mobile adoptions quite frequently. We have Adopt-A-Palooza, which is huge. That's at Union Square. But we've also had adoption events at Prospect Park here in Brooklyn. So,
What do you say when people say that that shelter animals are second best? What do you say to that?
I have never heard that, but if I had, I would say that I truly 100% disagree. All my pets have been rescued since childhood, and they've, like Leanne mentioned, they know, they're grateful, and the return on what you give is so great from a rescue pet.
And just to take a step back for a minute, what is the Mayor's Alliance for New York City's Animals?
Sure, so we're a coalition of 150 plus rescue groups in the greater New York City area, so all 5 boroughs. And we are striving to make New York City a no-kill community by 2015, which is so exciting for us.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, the thought that these little guys would get killed, it's just awful, and for no reason other than that they don't have homes, and yet they'd be perfect pets.
Yeah, and what if someone's watching this and they think, okay, that's it, I need a dog. Maybe they want one of these dogs. First of all, tell us how they could go about adopting one of these dogs.
Great, so you would want to email info@animalalliancenyc.org.
Okay, info@animalalliancenyc.org. And what if they might be watching this on the internet and maybe they're not in New York City but they want to adopt a dog? What's the best way to go about doing so?
I would say visit our website. You can scroll through our APOs, which are our Alliance participating organizations, and find one of our 150 plus groups. Also, petfinder.com is an excellent resource. That's how I found my rescue dog, Kiko.
Oh, well, it's so exciting to have all of you here today, especially all of these lovely ones. I think the dogs have had it though.
I know,
they're tired. They're like, all right, we're over this. Except, oh yes, you are perfection.
Clover is still raring to go. She's waiting for her close-up.
Yeah. I'm actually thinking that we're going to distribute the dogs to the crew in lieu of having vegan donuts after we're done. And thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today in our Hen House.
And for all the work you do.
All of the incredible work you do. And I want to make this a regular thing because there's just so many wonderful animals. And I think it's possible that Leanne might be going home with one today. I think it's possible. And if you want to know more about the work of the Mayor's Alliance for New York City's Animals, you can find them online at animalalliancenyc.org. And regardless of where you are, if you're looking for a new best friend, visit your local shelter or rescue organization. I can absolutely promise you they have the most amazing dogs and cats there ever in the world, don't you think?
As amazing as them?
As absolutely amazing as them. And
All right, enough of that.
But that is it from us hens today. And thank you so much for joining us here at our Hen House. Remember, you can find our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, and on the Our Hen House online magazine, which you can find at ourhenhouse.org. Not that you're going to remember that right now, since there's much more interesting beings to look at than me. And we look forward to seeing you next week with a brand new show. Thanks, everyone.
Our hen house is a squawking house. Our hen house is their hen house. Our hen house, ooh, it's a funky fresh house. Our hen house is your hen